Mic check, mic check, mic check. Okay, we are live. Yeah, so the 22nd World Travel and Tourism Council, that's a WTTC Global Summit, will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, between the 28th of November and 1st December. I received an invite this week, so I'm really looking forward to that particular event in the coming weeks. But before that, undoubtedly the biggest sporting event on the planet takes place starting November 20th. This particular edition is on quite controversial soils and times. Actually, a whole Netflix docuseries was released this week on Wednesday, I believe, on the same. Qatar is the host nation, and there's been quite some bad blood that's been boiling for the past couple of days. Actually, not just days, but the past couple of years since the announcement. But, well, it's still happening in Qatar. And, well, it's the World Cup, so we will be cheering on our favorite national teams, especially for countries like my own, Uganda, that are still dreaming of the day that they'll ever make it to the World Cup. But, yeah, it's the time of the year when so many awesome events are happening. We had the release of the new Black Panther movie on Friday, and I hope to see it in the new week because, well, when it's released on Friday, it's quite... it's not too expensive, but it's cheaper in the new week between Monday and Thursday. And as someone that likes discounts and everything, I think I'll go and see it next week. Who doesn't want a discount? But I'm even more excited for the new Avatar that comes out, I believe, on December 11th. Obviously, as a big fan of James Cameron and all the awesome work he does. So I can't wait for the new Avatar. And of course, Christmas is coming up as well. So wow, what a beautiful time of the year. But since we are talking travel on today's podcast, travel and safaris in 2023, I must note that National Geographic released its travel list for 2023. Now let that first sink in. Maybe have a drum roll. Yes. Yeah, so National Geographic released its travel list for 2023 some days ago, and I have been itching to have a chat about this, more in light of which African countries got spotlighted this time round. So yes, this and more after the short break. Oh, and I must mention that today's episode might be oddly shorter than usual. Yeah, but we'll discuss this and more after the short break, so stay on. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Jonathan Benaya podcast, a show that is wild, very wild. We try to put out a new episode every Sunday with discussions ranging around how to make the natural world a better place, creating awesome images, telling stories with words, wildlife films and photography, with occasional musings on sound and tech. I do share a lot of my own personal experiences, and from time to time, I'll have one or two guests on the podcast to share some insightful discussions. If you are fascinated about the natural world, especially natural history films and photography, environmental conservation, and African travel at large, this podcast will have you in a spin. So thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy your time here. Alright guys, welcome back to the Jonathan Benaya podcast, where we talk the earth, images, wildlife films and photography, and occasionally music. Many thanks to everyone that tuned in last week and the week before. The metrics really show that you guys really enjoyed those two segments, especially the one on wildlife photography. I'd like to say a very big thank you to the guests who offered their time and expertise to make those two episodes very valuable for my listeners. That was Hanji Bashir from the Uganda Wildlife Authority, who we collaborated with for the conservation episode that was 2 weeks ago. And then Becky Alexandria, Peter Hogel, and Brian O'Jonathan, who joined that really powerful 3-part episode on nature and wildlife photography in Africa. But I know what brought you here today, so let's get on with the good stuff. Yeah, we are discussing Nat Geo's Best of the Wild list for 2023. Now, travel inspiration is everywhere you look, but the question often is, Where do you go in the wealth of the many stunning places out there? The many incredible experiences out there. Where should one go next, or what should one do next? And sometimes it quite feels like being out in the supermarket with a lot of choices to pick from. I personally hate shopping. I hate the supermarket because of those many choices. I often get stressed when I have a shopping list. Now, just picturing someone that doesn't know where to go, doesn't know the options out there, quite feels like being in a supermarket without a shopping list. But that's just me. And no, it's not the same story when it comes to choosing travel destinations. It's usually easier for me to find out where to travel because, well, that's where my bread is buttered. It's right now people are kind of in that phase, or call it the New Year's resolution mode. The world has pretty much moved on from the pandemic that rocked 2020 and 2021. I was talking to a few tour operators, and they seem to say that they had a better year for sure, and quite possibly looking forward to a better 2023. Well, according to National Geographic, 43% of their readers want to go to wilderness locations, which they say is important because it puts tourists in closer proximity with important conservation work. But it also brings them closer to cultural connections with the folks they find in those destinations. As more of those pandemic restrictions are loosened, National Geographic wants people to take longer distances and take more of those off-the-grid travels. And boy, does nature offer so many options for going off the grid and just breathing in and taking in that awesomeness. And that's why I'm forever voting for quality time spent in the bush. Well, National Geographic released their list for 2023. We will go through that list with emphasis on the African countries that featured, because, well, what we're mostly about here is African travel. We're inspiring responsible African travel. Yeah, and then on the other hand, Safari Bookings, which is the largest safari aggregator on the planet, also released their list, which they call the top 10 best safari destinations this year. So I think it might be worthwhile that we go through that list as well after the Nat Geo list, just to give people a bit more options of where to go for the holiday next year. All right, now back to National Geographic. When we are talking National Geographic, we are talking about the top editors, some of the most experienced travelers, and some proficient travel influencers out there. So let's just assume if they said Uganda was on the list of the top 10 African destinations to visit in 2023, that's big news for us. It's a lot of gravitas for us in that. Obviously, any destination that shows up on any of these lists has its weight of gains. There's obvious benefits for branding and profile awareness, but it also comes with its gush of media attention and the credibility as well, given that National Geographic is very well respected around the world. But it's also for the widening of circles of influence. Yeah, so any destination that shows up on this list definitely has had a great year and deserves to be on the list for travelers in 2023. Now, let me not just assume that everyone knows what National Geographic is. So, just a brief on them, they are a popular American monthly magazine that is published by the National Geographic Society. They are most known for their photojournalism, and they're one of the most widely read magazines of all time. Now, let that sink in. One of the most widely read magazines of all time, like ever. Now, their list is titled The 25 Breathtaking Places and Experiences for 2023. The list opens up with a rather intriguing introduction that really draws you in. National Geographic's list is a compilation of superlative destinations for the year ahead, places filled with wonder, rewarding for travelers of all ages and supportive of local communities and ecosystems. 5 destinations featured in each of the 5 segments. The 5 segments they had were, I believe, number 1 was community, then there was a section on nature, there's a section on culture, a section on family travel, and then finally a section on adventure travel. Yeah, so let's start with community and let's see what African destinations made it to the list. Yeah, so under community, we're looking at where travel benefits everyone. The only African destination in this category, as I said, each category has 5 destinations. The only African destination here was Ghana. Now, the invitation by National Geographic was for people to explore Black heritage and hang out with a fashion-forward crowd in the capital of Ghana, that's Accra. Ghana has actually become the hottest destination for African American travelers, if you didn't know. Actually, during the pandemic, I had an engaging interview with a New York-based African American. His story had been covered by CNN, Forbes, and I think the New York Times. You can actually look that up, that interview on my YouTube. It was, I think, in 2020. So I won't be throwing out any spoilers, but in that interview, I did realize how big Ghana has become for folks looking to find their roots back to the African continent. 2023 will be 4 years since the famed Year of Return, and that was a tourism initiative that invited Black people from across the diaspora to return to the African continent in 2019 to mark the 400 years since slave ships left West African coasts carrying their ancestors to the Americas. Many of those ships would have set off from what is known as present-day Ghana. History reveals that the Portuguese people built castles along the coast to imprison captured Africans before sending them shackled and bare across the Atlantic. So for Black Americans, a return to Ghana is a trip back to where atrocities of African American slave trade began. So yes, a new travel movement has been forging ancestral links in West Africa for sure, and it seems to still be the same in the coming year. So yes, Ghana showing up in this community segment is no surprise to me. Yeah, so let's also see what other destinations were in this category. Of course, Ghana came 5th, but in first place we had the Dodecanese Islands of Greece. In second place we had Milwaukee, that's in Wisconsin, USA. Third place we had Alberta, Canada, and finally in 4th place there was Laos in Southeast Asia. Now let's look at the second category, that's the nature category, which is an invite to escape to the wild. This is my favorite category for obvious reasons. All right, now the African destination in this list was, drum roll, Botswana. Botswana is the only African destination that made it to the nature category. And for a moment, every time this nation is mentioned, every time it appears on travel lists, I smile because it is a deserving candidate for all the right things got right. If I could relocate to any bushland for the rest of my life, obviously with a few exceptions of Kidepo in Uganda, it would be one of the wildlands in Botswana, especially the Okavango Delta. There's something about the Okavango that really awakens my spirit. Well, National Geographic invites global wanderers to marvel at the biodiversity of Botswana, as well as to witness the programs that are going on to rehabilitate endangered species and create wildlife corridors and develop community-owned tourism projects. Congratulations, Botswana. The other featured destinations in the nature category were Botswana topped the list in the nature category. In second place, we had the Scottish Islands, where there is an ongoing giant rewilding campaign, which is a movement to return native flora and fauna. There's actually a particular YouTuber the other day who was talking about an interesting project by some guys called, I believe they were called Established Titles. So with this, basically you pay a small fee and you get a land title in Scotland on this forest estate. The title is it gives you a unique number and it's actually in your names. That is indeed a valid physical plot of land in Scotland. So you get to be called a landlady or a landlord. It gives you that lordship title. And if you choose to visit this place in Scotland anytime, you are able to see your small plot of land with those trees planted. They also give you some sort of certificate that is pretty much equated to your land title. You can print it out, or they can even send you via courier a physical framed certificate, which is a land title basically. And you can use the title of landlord and landlady on your official documents legally, so you can call yourself Lord Benaya if you bought a title. The only thing you aren't allowed, obviously, to do is cut down the trees on your plot, because the whole purpose is to raise funds to protect, but also reforestate this region with indigenous Scottish trees, which I think is a brilliant idea, a brilliant model for people that are looking to reforestate. It for one reason communicates to the emotions of people, and it's the same discussion we were having with Bashir from Uganda Wildlife Authority the other day. It's one thing to ask people to give you conservation dollars, charitable dollars to support conservation work, but it's also one thing to get them to contribute out of something that they feel has value towards them, or something they're interested in. I think the model of selling plots to people by Scotland is one that communicates to the emotions, and one that quite gets some significant buy-in, especially with those benefits of being called a lord. You have your plot, you're a landlord, you have your title, the prestige, and also the fact that you're listed on their website as a landlord. Quite some prestige. It's quite an interesting way to raise conservation money. Anyway, away with the Scottish Islands. In third place under the nature category was Slovenia's sustainable tourism. And then in fourth place, we had the Big Bend National Park in Texas. Fifth place came Portugal's far-flung island paradise of Azores. All right, and the third category is culture. And here we're talking about places where history and heritage rule. All right, the only African destination in this category was Egypt. The largest archaeological museum in the world, that's the Grand Egyptian Museum. You could call it the GEM because that's its abbreviation. The museum is due to open later this year or early 2023 outside Cairo. This dazzling showplace is located near the pyramids of Giza, and it cost them about over $1 billion to build. It will also hold a large chunk of Egypt's ancient artifacts, including the treasures of King Tutankhamun's tomb. Now, if you have been following Egyptian history, you should know who King Tut or King Tutankhamun is. If you don't, I recommend you really look him up. It's an interesting story. Anyway, the Egyptian promise is one of fresh discovery, which means that bookings for trips to Egypt are really shooting up more than 100% for some of the most popular tourist source markets. So many of their sites are actually currently getting revamped, conserved and preserved. I've been told that even going to the pyramids is a lot smoother with the electric buses. There are so many more options for dining and several tourist services. I've personally been studying ancient civilization for the last 2 years. And of course, if you are talking ancient civilization, Egyptology is one of those really exciting topics. Of course, with all this theoretical knowledge that I have about Egypt, I'd like to visit this place. And in case anyone is listening in and has some leads to Egypt, do hit me up. I'd be up for some deep exploration. I have a lot of knowledge about Egypt that is burning my head, that I just want to see what exactly is on the ground. Yeah, so Egypt led the category on culture, but there are 4 other remarkable destinations in there. In second place was Busan, that's South Korea. And in third place, there was Italy's Appian Way, which is also called Europe's ancient superhighway. And in fourth place was Charleston, South Carolina. That's in the USA. In fifth place, we had Longmen Grottoes. That's a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the Hainan province of China. All right, moving on in the fourth category, which is a family travel category that is basically inspiring journeys for all ages. Unfortunately, but quite oddly, there was no African destination in this category this year. The destinations that made the section were Switzerland in first place, Trinidad and Tobago in second, San Francisco, the great city in California, that came third. Colombia came fourth, and in fifth place we had Manchester in England. Shout out to all true Manchester fans. I mean Manchester United fans. Anyways, the final destinations, final 5 destinations were in the final category, and that's the category of adventure. So we're looking at the adrenaline pumping outdoor excursions. Quite oddly, no African destinations is here as well. I do get the feeling that maybe Uganda's Jinja, with all its buzzing adventure options, could have been included. Especially the fact that I believe Jinja has 2 of the best bungee jumping spots on the planet. I don't think you can beat bungee jumping over the world's longest river, especially in a township that is also the source of this legendary river, the Nile River. Anyways, I'm a bit biased, but perhaps there's more work for the players involved in Jinja tourism and also tourism in Uganda at large to shine more light on the story around the Nile, the story of Jinja. I feel like there's a big low-hanging fruit that needs to be capitalized on a bit more. Yeah, Jinja is one of those places that should be minting in a lot more money than we should be. Anyway, away from the mambo jumbo, the destinations in this category of adventure, in first place there was Peru. In second place you had New Zealand. New Zealand is actually the country that invented bungee jumping, so if you didn't know, there you go. In third place there was Utah, USA. In fourth place we had Austria, that's in Europe. And in fifth place we had, now let me not butcher this name, Revilingigedo National Park, that's in Mexico. Yeah, so that's the list. That's a list of 25 compiled by National Geographic. These are all awesome destinations selected from contributions by global editors of this big brand, the National Geographic Travel. But I'd like to also quickly skim through Safari Booking's leading destinations, as I believe that would be very beneficial for my safari-loving listeners, of course, who are also obviously the majority, because on here, among all other reasons, we are all about inspiring responsible travel to Africa. Yeah, so let's look at the Safari Bookings list. It's slightly different from National Geographic's method of compiling. Safari Bookings is more of their list is more visitor centered, although there is still a percentage of the vote that goes towards opinions from leading travel journalists as well. At Safari Bookings, they receive thousands of safari reviews via their website, and given that they are the world's leading aggregator of African safaris, once a year they scrutinize all these reviews and determine which country should be crowned Africa's best destination for safaris. Yeah, so this particular year, the reviews were analyzed in a comprehensive study. Safari goers from all over the planet made a valuable contribution. The analysis also included feedback from a bunch of travel journalists, mainly guidebook writers who contribute regularly to Rough Guides, there's From Us Travel, there's Brad Guides, and I believe Footprint as well. Yeah, so here is the list of the 12 countries that made it to Safari Bookings list to visit in 2023. In 12th place, we had Malawi, for obvious reasons. That's an amazing tourist destination on the African continent. In 11th place, we had the stunning Mozambique. In 10th place, we had Swaziland, which is an interesting one. And then in 9th place, we had Rwanda. Now, let's first pause for a moment. Our younger brother, who is Rwanda, of course, I feel like they're doing all they can do to push the tourism thing. Rwanda is a story of everything that is possible. They deserve all the praise that they get, because boy, are they putting in the work. Anyway, moving on, in eighth place, this is an exciting one. We have Uganda. Yeah, tourism in Uganda contributes over 1.6 billion US dollars, as plus minus. And I think publications like this list of 12 can only add to that number, especially in a sector where international travel is a big deal. In the previous years, we've had a booming domestic tourism episode that is happening in Uganda, but still those international, or rather the foreign dollars, are key for improving this nascent tourism sector, but also supporting conservation efforts, including around the iconic species like saving the great apes, it's the mountain gorillas, and the chimpanzees for the case of Uganda. Uganda is a great destination to view wildlife in both forest and savanna. Not to be missed is gorilla tracking in Bwindi, Impenetrable, and Mugahinga Gorilla National Parks. Chimpanzees can be seen in quite a number of locations, but most notably in Chibale National Park. And then we have Queen Elizabeth National Park and Murchison Falls National Park, which offer wonderful savanna safaris with good wildlife viewing, as does the more remote Kibepo Valley National Park up northeast. Yeah, so Uganda is a country with many contrasts that's from time to time been referred to as the whole African continent in a condensed version. And I guess that's why it's called the Pearl of Africa. So yes, congratulations Uganda to making it on the top 12 list for this year. And then in 7th place we have Namibia. That's one of my personal favorites. I dream of those vast deserts every day. I dream of shooting, photographing, in Etosha National Park one day, as well as just to experience the people and cultures of this underrated destination of Namibia. Namibia sits way high up there when I'm ranking African destinations. So yes, well deserved. Probably would have been higher up the list, but well, it's in 7th place this year. In 6th place, we have the historical South Africa. Needs no introduction. And then from here onwards, we have what you'd call the safari superpowers. Yeah, so in 5th place, we have Kenya, which is a well-known destination for the magic it accords. Yeah, in 4th place, we have Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe is home to one of my favorite national parks. Obviously, most people go there for the Victoria Falls, but one of my favorite national parks is the Manaples National Park, which is found in Zimbabwe. And in 3rd place, we have Zambia, which is home to 2 of my favorite national parks. That's the Kafue National Park, and yeah, I know I've been hinting about some of my favorite national parks, but if you want to get the whole list, just head over to my YouTube channel. There's a list. There's a video I did a while back ranking I believe my top 10 African national parks. So yeah, find it on the YouTube channel. Yeah, in 2nd place, we have Tanzania. It's a safari historical, like South Africa and Kenya, that's known. Yeah, and then finally, drum roll, we have Botswana. Now, Botswana, which topped the nature category on National Geographic's list, is also topping the safari bookings, top safari destination list for 2020, for visitors for 2023. Yeah, so that's Botswana. Yeah, they got it and they deserved it. One of my favorite African destinations for sure. I believe they also won it the last time the list was compiled. So yes, 2 times in a row is a very big deal. The Okavango Delta is an iconic name, as is the Kalahari Desert. These 2 are big draw cards for visitors, and both certainly live up to their safari legend status. Botswana was also rated as the best country overall for wildlife, bird watching, and basically for its bush vibe, which really consolidates its position as the best safari destination in Africa. Very well deserved. I believe no one can dispute this. Botswana is way up there. Obviously, if you are visiting Botswana, you're looking for the low density tourism. Of course, a big draw card is the fact that Botswana offers this exclusive experience as opposed to those destinations in Africa that I'll not mention, which have all that safari traffic jam where you are so many cars around the sighting. In Botswana, it's private, it's exclusive, it's intimate, it's amazing. You have all those eco-friendly lodges. You are also looking for those opportunities to enjoy wildlife viewing in their different national parks in a very sustainable manner. Botswana is amazing. There's the beautiful and diverse scenery of the desert as well. You have the salt pans, you have the savanna grasslands, and of course the delta waterways. The Okavango is magical. All right, so yes, congratulations Botswana. Very well deserved. I'm very happy that a deserving country makes it to number 1 this year. All right, so those are the 2 big lists so far released, the National Geographic list of 25 and Safari Bookings list of 12. We expect leading travel media like Rough Guides, Lonely Planet, Condé Nast Traveler, and several others to release their 2023 lists in the coming days, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. Yeah, but before we wind things down, maybe we should also look at what countries made it to Forbes' list. For those that don't know, Forbes is an American business magazine that's owned by Integrated World Media Investments and the Forbes family. It publishes 8 times a year and it features articles on finance, industry, investment, and several marketing topics. Forbes also reports on subjects like travel, technology, communication, science, politics, and law as well. Now, Forbes released their list of 23 best places to travel in 2023, and only 1 African destination made it to the list, but it was ranked way high on the list. In second place, in second place out of the 23 best places to visit, according to Forbes, was Marrakesh in Morocco, which for me is a significant position for Morocco to hold, given those other destinations that are on the list that are quite impressive as well. So for Morocco to rank second on Forbes' list is quite a statement. Yeah, as I said, I'm looking forward to the lists by Rough Guides and Condé Nast Travel. Obviously, next week, I believe on Wednesday, Lonely Planet will reveal its highly anticipated annual Best in Travel list. And this is meant to feature 30 exciting international destinations that their correspondents and editors recommend visiting in 2023. But maybe a flashback to last year, the countries that made it to the list, the African destinations that made it to Lonely Planet's list, were Mauritius, Malawi, Egypt, and I believe Nigeria featured because of Lagos. So it would be very interesting to see who makes it to the Lonely Planet list this year. Of course, as I said, that list comes out next week on Wednesday. That's the 16th of November, I believe. Oh, and maybe finally, before I end this particular episode, let's also look at what African destinations made it to last year's Rough Guides list as we anticipate their list for 2023. Their list is usually dubbed the best places on earth. And in 2022, we had Morocco, we had South Africa, and Madagascar. Obviously, we've already seen Morocco featured in Forbes' list for 2023. And we've seen South Africa also featured on Safari Bookings list for African safari destinations for the new year. And Madagascar is an interesting destination for me. It's very underrated in my opinion. Definitely one of many African destinations on my bucket list. If you are looking for new experiences, definitely have a Google search on Madagascar and you'll thank me. Yeah, so let's see which other African destinations will make it to those other prestigious lists in the coming weeks. So yes guys, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would, however, like to know what are your thoughts on these lists so far released by National Geographic, Safari, Bookings, and Forbes. And maybe who do you think will appear on Lonely Planet's lists of 30 next week? Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with the ranking, or would you have put other destinations on the lists, Safari lists? Or do you feel that we should have had a few more African destinations listings, especially for the National Geographic one? Yeah, so over to you guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and hit that like button, share the link in your circles. And as we always say, if you did enjoy it, feel free to hit that the thumbs down. It is a lot of democracy over here. That's always very useful feedback. Yeah, and for all those that can't have enough and just want to have more and more of this content, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Radio Republic, Pocket Casts. And this particular episode might also make it to YouTube. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.